This episode of the Ryen Russillo podcast is brought to you by 12.
They say money can't buy happiness. Look at the fucking smile on my face. Ear to ear, baby. You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Okay, a little life advice on a Monday. Life advice address is lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Okay, 55130. He says hashtag short king. Don't go to the gym too much. We got into running like everyone else during COVID. Couldn't run more than 2 miles pre-COVID. Now prepping for a half marathon in October. Also going to do 18 pull-ups. That's awesome, man. Okay. He wants us to be really honest here, and we're going to be. One of my good buddies, 10 years, signed a 1-year lease back in December at the height of COVID because it was a super sweet deal. But a month in, I had second thoughts. I tried toughing it out, but after another 2 months, I continued to feel depressed and let him know I wanted to move back home. Granted, I didn't handle this well at all. I blindsided him during the workday to let him know the news and didn't really give him any sense that I was thinking about moving out. But I did offer that I'd be willing to help find him a new roommate for the remainder of the lease or even pay the 3-month rent penalty to break the lease. This was actually very steep because it was 3 months of our total rent, so essentially 6 times my monthly rent. So, all right, so he was going to say after 3 months in, he'd help him find a new roommate for the rest or even pay 3-month rent penalty to break the lease. So 3 months of our total rent, so 6 times my monthly rent. My buddy, understandably shell-shocked, at first seemed fine with what had transpired, but then informed me he did not want a random roommate, also understandable, and wants me to pay the full remaining balance of my rent. We ended up compromising and me paying another 6 months, i.e. a termination fee, and him paying the final 2 months of my portion of the lease so that he could continue living there. I thought the compromise was good and would save our friendship, but it's been a few months since that compromise, but our friendship seems to have not been the same since. We don't talk or text or hang out as much, and when we do, there's an awkward air to it. So I wanted to get your opinion on our compromise. Was I out of line? Should I have paid the full remainder of the lease, or was he being unreasonable? How do we move past this lease situation to go back to being best friends like we were before the whole apartment situation? Well, look, you kind of fucked him, man. I mean, you admit it. You loved the idea of this lease because it sounds like you were going to be living in a place you normally wouldn't be able to live in because rental numbers were just getting crushed. Occupancy numbers, or I guess I should say apartment vacancies in major cities throughout COVID, like it just started going worse and worse. And it depends on what was actually reported and what the real number was. So it sounds like you guys got in on something you normally wouldn't be able to get. And so now you're there, you don't like it, you regret it, you sign the lease. And I would say from a starter, the reason, people live with each other is usually there's some kind of relationship. I'm obviously not saying that for everybody, but in this case, he's thinking, I want to move into this and I'm moving in with my best friend. Now I got a stranger in here. Like, I don't want to do that. I would never do that. Never. Okay. Granted, yes, I realize some people have to do it, but in this case, that's not what this guy thought he was going to be doing. So it sounds like you come up with some sort of financial plan here. Like, honestly, what you should have done is just said, hey, I am going to pay whatever the penalty is. Like, you're the one that made the mistake. So if you've made the mistake, you'd have admitted it and you didn't handle it that well. I can't believe you just called him at work and you're like, hey, dude, guess what? I'm out. I don't like it here. And I understand you got to take care of yourself and all that kind of stuff. But like, think about, you're saying it's awkward now. Think about how he feels about this. He's like, if it were reversed and you go, hey, one of my best friends, we get this place, I'm thrilled. 3 months in, he blindsides me, says, hey, do you want a stranger in here? I tell him no. We try to figure some stuff out here financially. And then it sounds like that there's one way you phrase this is a little confusing, but I guess the part of this is that you compromised on you paying for another 6 months. So I know that sucks for you. And then he got to live there apparently without you. So that's like a great setup for him. So he should probably be a little bit happier about it. But this is just one of those classic things, especially if you're younger and you haven't had enough things happen in your life yet. Like, this might be the first time ever there was some kind of derailment of a living situation, right? And so now, since it's the first time it's ever happened to you, and look, you're going to have bigger challenges and much more frustrating stuff that happens to you later on in life. But like, that's why being younger sometimes can be weird because you haven't ever gone through anything like this. So this isn't really a ruling like, hey, you're to blame or he's to blame or all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're clearly to blame. I guess there's part of this you could say, hey, if you paid the next 6 months and you get to live there for free, then he should be able to pay the final 2 months. But if you really care about the friendship, it's either going to be fine with time, or you're going to have to just step up again and express to him, look, I was really depressed. I had made a mistake. I missed being home. I couldn't do it. I know I fucked up the whole deal, but if you did end up paying for the next 6 months on your own when you weren't even living there, that is still a pretty, like, that actually feels like a pretty good compromise on your end if it ended up with him only having to cover 2 months of the entire place by himself. So I think you did enough here, even though this is your fault.
Yeah, I would say other than the way the news was broken, which was probably, could have been done better, maybe not when he's, at work and it's kind of a stressful situation, and just to drop that on you in the middle of a day is kind of shitty. You should probably plan that out better. But what's your friend I mean, does he want to like live with you and have you be miserable the entire time? You paid a ton of money to help him out. And I think as a friend, he should understand that you're not in a great position. You want to go back home and you're homesick. And as much as that sucks for him, you did everything you could to make him comfortable too. So I don't know. I actually don't think this guy was that much of a dick other than the way he delivered the message.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the other guy has to get over it too. I mean, if I understand this email correctly, that he got 6 months paid for half a place that he had by himself. So I think
that's sick.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, if he made it 3 months or maybe that fourth month. And so I think that's the math, 3 or 4 months in, then 6 months solo where the other guy's paying for it. Yeah, he needs to get over it a little bit. Now, I had friends that never really had that many challenges. College was a breeze for them. They always had money. The family was always supportive. It always felt like they were the younger of the siblings, so they were kind of handled a little different. I know I was the oldest, so I think the oldest can be both great and have other things of it that aren't so great. But I would see them be completely fucking derailed for the slightest little thing. And you go like, oh man, you haven't had like any adversity, like none whatsoever. So, I mean, that could be the issue here. This could be the first living situation or anything, if you guys are that young, where there's been any kind of adversity for him whatsoever. And, maybe he's just soft, maybe.
But that's the only thing too, is that like, if they were like tag team and hey, we're going to go, we're going to live in the city together, we're going to have a good time, we're both young, and then one of them bails, it does kind of screw the other guy's life. Like I'm sympathetic towards why that guy would be upset with you, because he's like, okay, cool. Now, so you want to go home and I'm stuck in this apartment by myself with no friends in the city that I don't want to live with some random. So you are kind of screwing his life up a little bit too, especially if he was kind of dead set on being there for a while. Because now does he have to move home? Like what's his situation? Well, it affects him a ton.
Yeah.
So see, I get it. But I mean, what else are you going to do? If the guy's homesick, you gotta just, he's your friend, man. You got to support him.
Stefan, you want to jump in here? We have no Kyle today. We're very, very lucky to have our man with us in New York.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is like, why did you let it get to that point? If that's your best friend, like, why are you being so passive aggressive with him? You guys live in the same house. Like, you could have told him a little bit sooner than that. You could have like not had Sprung go and call him at work and say, hey, I'm moving out and I'm going back home. I like the part that he's like, yo, I'm going to pay for half my rent for half the year. That's respectable. I respect that. But this is like your best friend, as you say, like you guys live together. You guys are walking around the same house, eating dinner, watching TV, doing whatever. Like at some point you're going to say, yo, bro, I'm going through it. I think it's time for me to go home. But you're like, call him at work. Like, yeah, man, I'm moving out. Like, I got some money set aside for you. It's like, what? Why did you spring this on me? Like, we could have had a conversation and smooth this out. I think that's going to be the hardest part of the friendship if they're going to work it back out, is that like you didn't trust me at all to like come to me and talk to me about that. I understand people have mental problems and those kind of things, but like being passive aggressive with your best friend is weird to me. That's just my person.
Not a good
one. Yeah. I don't like, the more we talk this out, and I'm going to end this here shortly. Like if the other guy, like what do we not know about the negotiation? Like what's the other guy's version when he tells his friends about this? Like, does he say, at first he didn't even want to pay, so that maybe the compromise that you made ends up being good to us, but was there a weird 2-week stretch where you guys were fighting this out? And so it's not even about the money. It's not even him about, being in the apartment by himself the rest of the way. It's about all the time where you guys couldn't come to an agreement, which has damaged the friendship forever. Or the other guy may be like insanely selfish and is going, now I have to move and I want to live here 3 years. You're like, well, dude, like we didn't get fucking married. Like, we signed a lease together, and now if you have to move to a lesser apartment because we got an awesome apartment during COVID, we got the COVID rate on this, and eventually the rent was going to go back up, and now your plans are derailed a year ahead of time. Like, at some point, like, that's not on me. So there's a lot in here. There's probably a little bit more. I
We
do
need
want
more
to get
information.
Yeah, well, we don't. We're good.
I do.
Email Cerruti then. All right. We had a lot of people chime in with our Daniel Ricciardo, Dwight Howard comp that Kevin Clark brought up. F1 going abroad. We'll be doing that midweek. Shout out to Ricciardo and the McLaren team for getting the win at Monza this week. I'm not ready to do it. We had 20-something hours of football here at the compound. And a guy chimed in and said, good day. He goes, as an Aussie, I'm telling you, the only comp for Daniel Ricciardo is Ben Simmons. Both super talented. When they started, got paid, got popular, and then did what every upstanding Australian always does, thinks to themselves, how good is this? I'm worth a fortune, even if I don't do another day's work in my life. It's in our DNA. Think of Ricciardo and Simmons. Think of Nick Kyrgios and Bernard Tomic. Is it Tomic or Tomic? I forget. In the tennis. Kyrgios is always one of my favorites because every time he loses again, then I'm told that I don't understand him. I'm like, okay. I just think he kind of sucks to watch play tennis. Yeah, he's super talented and is incredibly soft mentally. He goes, even a footballer who went to the Premier League, Mark Bosnich, is the best example ever. He happily sat on the bench everywhere he played over there after trying just hard enough to get a decent contract. The lazy wanker, he calls him. Do you remember him, Cerruti?
I don't, unfortunately, no.
Well, it sounds like that's not your fault because he didn't play. Ultimately, this is just about being an Aussie. It's why everyone loves coming over here. It's so laid back. You guys are so easygoing. Why wouldn't we think this translates to our sports people? I don't know. I don't know enough about the Australian culture for that one. I thought you were a little more rugged than that, but maybe that's just the football videos in the cross Australian trucking show I watched an episode and a half of Netflix. I didn't like the Ricciardo Dwight Howard thing because everybody likes Ricciardo. Nobody likes Dwight Howard. To remind everybody about Dwight Howard, the entire NBA was in the bubble, and he went to a party by himself. And it was in an article.
No.
All right? So, first of all, I just want the Australian fan base to understand this is the emailer generalizing. I didn't like the Ricciardo Dwight comp, and shout out to McLaren again. So we don't have anything to add to that. It was just a theory thrown this way. But I'm getting a lot of shrapnel, a lot of take shrapnel. It happens a lot with Simmons. Like, I'll have kind of a medium take, and then Bill will either double down on what I said or he'll just go off in a completely different direction. And then I get all this take shrapnel and it'll just be out there in the ether. And I'll be like, look, that's not really even what I said. But again, that's the job. All right. So we'll keep it moving. Okay. One, this is one. I'm just going to read this one because everybody sends us in every episode. Annoyed. Can you help me with this? My annoyances with a podcast I like a lot. I don't love every episode or even every segment of the episodes. That's fair. So depend on the show notes. That's what I use to know where to jump. So everybody's mad about the timestamps. We do the timestamps originally, and then once the ads get cooked into the podcast, it changes all the timestamps, right, Cerruti? And depending on the platform, if it's Spotify or if it's Apple, it also can be different. What I would tell you is to struggle through those extra 6 or 7 seconds when you're navigating the 15 and 30-second buttons back and forth. Just try to deep breath, exhale during those 6 or 7 seconds of your day that's being screwed up by just having to find the start of the segment you like or the end of the segment you don't like, and just fight through it, perseverance, like our guy in the broken lease agreement. Just find a way to survive that challenge.
Yeah, people were really upset about missing the beginning of the life advice intro, and I get it. It's obviously some great drops there, but this is why you got to listen to Spotify. If you listen to Spotify, that usually doesn't happen. So shout out Spotify. There's a shameless plug for us, and all your problems will be solved.
There you go, solving problems. I got one more here. I think I'll read this one now because I think it's a little different. Okay, 24, 5'11", 180. I think he's saying over 1,000 pounds for the Olympic lifts here.
Whoa.
Sub 22, 5K. 1,000-pound breakfast, deadlift, squat, bench. I think that's what he's saying. Okay. Good news here is no physical altercation. We've got pictures, and the question is, should these guys have gotten their asses beat? All right. I was at a local college rivalry football game with my younger brother. I'm going to leave the school names out. His brother's on the team. This guy's in grad school. one of the teams has a COVID rule that if opposing player is not playing, they cannot travel with the team. But it was basically a very easy road trip. So this rule includes sideline access. So his brother was sitting in the stands with he and his family, and they're wearing the school gear. Anyway, towards the end of the game, the opposing team fans come over to the front row because they're in the other team's gear, right? We're all following here. They get to talk shit, and there was actually staff that was like on the sideline that the fans were talking shit to, too. All right, trainers, equipment managers, So the scene continues for about the entire fourth quarter, even as the event staff watches. They don't do anything. Both fan bases were kind of getting disgusted with these drunk guys that kept talking shit to everybody. At one point, they look over to me, and I tell them, why don't you just cross that fence and talk shit to their faces to the guys on the team that he was aligned with on the sideline? Is this making any sense to anyone right now? I hope so.
I'm following. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So these guys are talking shit from the stands to the sideline group of guys for the team that our emailer and his family and brother played for, right? All aligned with. So this leads to a verbal back and forth because the guy emailing and said, hey, why don't you go and talk shit to their faces across the fence? So then he said, I could outbench half this team, which is
strong.
Brag.
Which
brag.
Is one of the all-time. Didn't one of the fuck Jerry guys, when he was arguing with one of the Barstool guys, say, why don't we play one-on-one?
That's also a great way to settle a fight.
I don't know if that's true. I remember there being an argument between those two content providers, and the hilarity of one guy said to the other guy, like, why don't we fucking settle this playing 1-on-1 to 11? And everybody was like, what? What happened? What just happened? I don't know if that's true or not. I'm going to pretend it was. Okay, so this guy screams out from the drunk fan crew that wants to fight everybody, I could outbench half this team. And then our emailer says, judging on physical appearance, they were not these guys. Once they said that, all of the players with the team that were seated in the stands got really upset. But before these dudes got hurt, our dad is sitting next to us, and he simply introduced himself as our dad, and they shit bricks and left. So he sent a picture of his dad, and his dad does look like he is that guy. Okay. And I don't want to
describe him. What's is it like?
He just looks like that guy. I'm looking at pictures of him now, and there's something in his eyes, man. They're set back. He looks like he's in incredible shape.
A lot of adversity.
He looks like he's 230. Maybe he's not, but he's thick as hell. And look, there's some other background stuff that I'm not going to include in here because I don't want to give away everything here, but his resume is impressive. He goes, and our emailer also played in college. Okay. I understand the cheering and banter between fans and friends, but as Chris Long once said, don't mess with the exhibit. Which, did Chris say that?
I don't know, but if he did, great line.
It is a great line. I got screamed at, by the way, when I was at the LSU UCLA game by hammered LSU fans. It was weird. I didn't expect.
You're the adopted brother of Baton Rouge.
I don't expect every LSU guy in a hat to recognize me. They're also that LSU blackout that I've described before, where it's honestly one of the scariest functioning drunks I've ever seen in my life, where you're like, wait, this guy's a mess, and kickoff's in 5 hours, and you see him like after the game going, pretty solid, liked our run defense. You're like, how are you still standing up? But it's just Louisiana. You want to talk about built different. They are built different. Yeah, so I was getting screamed at, and I had my Blue Jays hat on. Shout out to my Blue Jays connection, and I wear pretty neutral stuff. So I was walking from the UCLA side past the LSU split at the stadium, and it was weird. And guys were like, fuck you fucking loser, UCLA loser. One guy was like, get the fuck out of our country. Did I already tell this story, or did I just tell it to you, Cerruti?
I've not heard this story at all. Wait, so this had to be because you probably looked Hollywood, right? You were probably in all black, as you mentioned, the Blue Jays hat. You had no LSU stuff on, so they're like, oh, this guy must be some like wannabe like UCLA fan who's shopping on the bandwagon, and they didn't know your connections to LSU. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly how it was. Gray on gray, I think. decent watch.
A slim Lululemon pant. Yeah.
No, I was going with the John Elliott edition mesh.
Okay.
John Elliott for out there, those that know. Yeah, so I looked pretty neutral, but the Blue Jays hat was funny because the guy's like, "Get the fuck out of our country," and then he goes, "Go Sox!" I'm like, this guy couldn't be getting it more wrong with me, and I just looked and was like, "Did you think you nailed that right now?" And he was just like shook that I stopped to say anything. I got to tell you, after it happened to me, I have less sympathy for the players that get that upset about it. Just who gives a shit? Keep walking. It doesn't it's just drunk people screaming at you.
Yeah, but Ryan, come on, say that to your younger self. I know 18-year-old me would not have been okay with that. 32-year-old me is like, I don't give a shit. Like, talk all the shit you want. I'm going to keep walking. But 18-year-old Cerruti was not going to, walk past that and just be like, whatever, dude. I don't really care. You guys are losers.
I started yelling at one guy to be like, because then as I walked past it, they were like, wait, it's Russillo. And I was like, tell that fucking guy. Kind of like laughing because like the wave of people as they saw me, then it was like, wait, is that guy? And then he was like, again, it's be pretty arrogant of me to think that every LSU fan's going to know who I am. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's not even close to being the truth. All right. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I thought about Russell Westbrook. I thought about Chris Long, and I just was like, yeah, why would I have to sit here and like get mad about this? Like, who gives a shit? But again, maybe I'm just mellowing. Maybe I'm not. Who knows? All right. So to wrap things up, my girlfriend was with us at the game, and she's disappointed in my behavior. She says I should have left it alone, being that I'm professionally trained in MMA. Okay. So we just got a team of badasses over here.
Right.
I didn't actually plan on fighting them. I just felt like somebody needed to tell him to shut the fuck up. See attached. Yeah. So he said, he was like, how did we handle it? Like, look, man, I'll tell you this. I've never met a girl ever that was like, what I really liked is when you started like yelling at that guy and you almost got in a fight. Okay. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I'm not saying it's zero. So we don't need emails about somebody's sister who likes to fight. Okay, fine. We get it. Don't argue exceptions. I don't think I've ever been in any kind of thing going back to much younger days where a girl that I was interested in was like, that was so cool when you and that guy started screaming at each other.
Sometimes I think there's actually a massive disconnect between what guys think girls find attractive and what girls actually find attractive. Like, we always talk about this, like the guy driving down the street who's like revving his engine, no muffler. And you're like, do you think that like this makes you hot? Do you think girls are going to be like, dude, that guy, no muffler, Subaru, I'm in. Like, let me get this guy's number. And like, who thinks that's hot? And it's the same thing. You're 100% right. Like, who's the guy who's like, I'm going to fight somebody at a bar or at a a high school football game? There's no way anybody's attracted to that. But guys somehow think that that's cool and that's what they do, and they're going to get girls because of it. I don't know. It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. She like crushed his whole ego. She's like, you know how to fight. Like, why are you trying to get into a fight? You're not impressing me. I know you know how to fight. Like, what is it? You're actually embarrassing me, if anything. Like, go sit
It must
down.
be
Like,
hard
that's
though.
Tough.
It must be hard for guys who know they can beat the shit out of somebody to like remain cool though, right? If somebody's talking shit in your face and you know that you could just kick their ass. I don't know about this because I can't kick anybody's ass, but that must be a hard thing to rein in and just, because you want to flex your muscles and be like, dude, if you even tried me right now, I would end you.
But it should be like the opposite though, Cerruti. Like, like it's like somebody who knows they have a gun on. It's like, I know like I could end everything here. Like if I really want to take it there, like I could end this whole thing. He's like, I know what I could do. Like, you should have a little more sense of common. I think that's what his girlfriend is trying to say to him. So I can see her point.
I got to be honest. Usually the follow-ups for Kyle, but once you stepped it up to somebody being strapped, I have follow-ups.
Oh God, where you go with this?
Maybe we'll just leave this one alone.
Yeah, we'll leave it there.
You're like, it's a lot like when you know a guy has a gun on him, and you're like, is it?
Yeah.
I've noticed this in the rare occurrences I've had being out with guys that are in the UFC. They are so calm about anything because it's just like whatever. Like, it's not. And you're a guy like, hey, and I asked a guy not that long ago because we were talking about, I can't give away any of the names, and I go, do those guys ever like kind of test you a little bit? And the guy just looked at me like straight face. He's like, no. He's like, they know. He's like, they know. I'm like, yeah, but these are like big tough guys. He's like, no, because they just know that they don't do anything. So hey, look, here's the point. I get that your girlfriend didn't like it. You clearly are going to get over this little bump in the road. But you guys are the heroes of this. Your dad's the hero of the entire event. That he got up and said, "Hey, I'm their dad. What's up?" And they all backed down. And all you said was like, "Hey, why don't you?" You didn't even say anything that bad. Of all the things you could have said, I almost think you might be downplaying some of the stuff you may have said a little. Because if you were all this tough, that's the only thing you ever said was, "Hey, I'm their dad." If that's what happened, you guys are the winners. Because then they walked away after they saw your dad, and you didn't even have to do anything. So my ruling on this is, I don't think you were asking for any advice, really. You just want to tell us your family was a bunch of badasses. My ruling is clearly on your side of this, and you shall. I believe your relationship will survive this.
Yeah, and nobody wants to fight someone's dad.
No, especially if he's this guy. If I showed you the pictures.
That guy.
All right. Hey, we'll be back Wednesday and Friday. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks to Surdy and Stefan for stepping up for this one, and I hope you enjoy it. NFL.